Hey guys, this is the video lesson for the last inquiry lab in Chapter 5 on finding distance on the coordinate plane. So in this first investigation, we're going to start with a problem that I know when you look at it, it's kind of easy, but it's supposed to teach you an idea that's going to help for harder ones. So let's read the problem at the top to start. So it says, Taylor's house and school are each shown on the map. What is the distance between the 2 points? So if you look over on this map, we have to find the distance between Taylor's house and the school. Now, I know you can look at it and I know you can count that there's 3 units. I get that. But we're going to go through it because we want to show you something that's going to help you in a little bit. So let's go through the investigation below. So step 1 says find the coordinates of Taylor's house. So Taylor's house, which is right here, is going to be at 5, 3. So write that down in step 1. 5, 3. Now, find the coordinates of the school. So, when we look at the school, it's at 2, 3. So, write those coordinates down. Now, step 3 says, draw a line between the points. The line is horizontal, so the y coordinates are the same. So, we'll draw a line between the points. And the point is, we want you to notice that the y coordinates are the same. So look in step 1 and 2, I'm going to highlight the y coordinates. They're both 3. Okay? Now, to find the distance, count the number of units between the x coordinates. Remember, the x ones are the ones that are different, the 2 and the 5. So the house, the x coordinate was 5, and the school, the x coordinate was 2. So, remember how we said we know it's 3 units apart? My question is, what would you do to these numbers? Well, you can count from 2 to 5, yes, but wouldn't you just subtract? 5 minus 2 is 3. So, what we're trying to show you here is that when the two, let me look at the house and the school, when the 2 points are in the same quadrant, see how they're both in quadrant 1 here, all you have to do is subtract the coordinates that are different. So, take a look here. They're in the same quadrant, and I know just by looking at the points because they're both positive, 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 positive. So, remember the 3's are the same, so you subtract the ones that are different. You subtract the 5 and the 2 and get 3. So that's the trick we're trying to teach you here. Now, investigation 2 will show you on the next page what happens if the points are in different quadrants. So, in investigation 2, notice, it says find the distance between point A and point B. Notice point A is in quadrant 2 and point B is in quadrant 3. So, step 1 says determine the coordinates for A. So, look over at A. Let me get this zoomed in. And A is at -2, +3. So, write that down. -2, +3. Now in step 2, it says determine the coordinates for point B. So B is at -2, -4. So we'll write that down. Now, step 3 says draw a line between the points. The line is vertical, so the x coordinates are the same. So I'm going to draw a line between those points from A to B. Notice it's a vertical line. That means it goes straight up and down. And that means the x coordinates this time are the same. Notice that in your coordinates, the -2 and the -2, the x coordinates are the same. The ones that are different are the y values. Now, in step 4, it says count the number of units between each y coordinate and the x-axis. So here's what that means. We have to count, let me get my highlighter on, say for point A. It's right here, right? We have to see how far away it is from the x-axis. So if you count that, it's 1, 2, 3. Okay? So remember the y-coordinate was 3, which means its distance from the x-axis is 3. Okay? Now we're going to do the same for B. Now remember in point B, the y-coordinate is -4, right? And we're going to see how far it is from the x-axis. So here's -4. If we count 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 units away. Okay. Now, does that remind you of something? If we have 3, it's 3 away from 0. Negative 4, it's 4 away from 0. Isn't that absolute value? The absolute value of that y coordinate, the absolute value of that. Okay, so now, step 5. To find the distance between the 2 points, add the distance from the x-axis to each point. So, remember this 3 and 4 here? We're going to add that up. 3 plus 4 is 7. So the distance from point A to point B is 7 units. Now, I know you could go up and you can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I get that. But what we're trying to show you is there's a shortcut. If you don't have the grid here, if the coordinates are in different quadrants. And let me show you how you can tell without the grid. You see how this one was negative, positive, this one was negative, negative. Because they're not the same, they'd have to both be negative, positive, or both be negative, 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 negative to be in the same quadrant. Because they're not the same, they're in different quadrants, right? So the rule is, if they're in different quadrants, you add the absolute values of the different coordinates. So the 3 and the negative 4 are different. Remember, the absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. You add them to find the distance. 4 plus 3 is 7. All right. Seems a little confusing until you start getting the hang of it. So we're going to go down. We're going to try some of these problems together. So number 1 says, work with a partner. I'm your partner. Draw a line between each pair of points. Find the distance between each pair of points. So again, I know you could use the graph, but you know what? You're going to have questions on PSSAs where you don't have a grid, and I want you to learn this trick. So we're going to start with point U and point V. We're going to write those coordinates. So point U is at 1, negative 3. And point V is at 4, negative 3. Now, notice they are both in the same quadrant. They are both in quadrant 4 down here, right? So that means you find the coordinates that are different. So let's look here in the coordinates. The ones that are, see how the y's are the same? The ones that are different are here. Because they're in the same coordinate, or in the same quadrant, you subtract. So 4 minus 1 is 3. That's the distance. Now, let's go over to problem 2. In problem 2, notice S and T are in different quadrants. So we're going to write down their coordinates. Point S is at 4, positive 2. Point T is at 4, negative 2. Okay. Now, because they're in different quadrants, we add the absolute value of the coordinates that are different. So look here for a second. See how the 4s are the same? They don't help us. The ones that are different are the y's, and we add their absolute value. So you do 2 plus 2 to get 4. That's the distance. And if you notice here, this one is 2 from 0, this one is 2 from 0, so we add those to get 4. That's all we're doing. All right. Now, on to this page. We're going to do a couple together, and then we're not going to do 7 and 8. They're overly complicated. But then I'm going to have you try some. So, in problem 3, and we're going to try to do it without looking at the graph. Because if you have the graph, you can just count them, but you don't have to learn this trick. So, the directions say, work with a partner, plot each pair of points on the coordinate plane. We won't do that. Maybe we'll do that to check it in the end. Find the distance between each pair of points. So, I'm going to help you with number 3 and 4, and then I'm going to have you try 5 and 6. So, in number 3, we want to see if the points are in the same quadrant. So, without plotting them, here's how you can tell. You see how that's negative, negative, and that's negative, negative. Because they're both negative negatives, they're in the same quadrant. Now, here's what that means. If they're in the same quadrant, we have to find the coordinates that are different. So notice how the negative 3 and negative 3s are the same, right? So that's not going to help us. We don't pay attention to those. We're going to pay attention to these. So when they're in the same quadrant, you subtract the absolute values. So you would do 6 minus 1. We're subtracting the absolute values of these two, which is 5 units away. Okay, now remember this rule when they're in the same quadrant. Now, I'll go back and show you just if we plotted them. Uh-oh, that eraser isn't working there. There we go. All right, so I'm going to plot -3, -6. So -3 would be right here. -6 would be right here. And I'm going to plot -3, -1, which would be right here. So we have to figure out how far away they are. Now notice this one's tricky if you're using the graph because the numbers are counting by 2, right? So you'd have to do this. Every half of a block is 1. You'd have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I think it's a lot easier if you know the rule to just do 6 minus 1 is 5. All right, try one more together. They're going to have you try 2. Okay, so let's look at 4. Let's first figure out if they're in the same or different quadrants. So this one is -, this one is +, because that's not the same. That means they are in different quadrants, which means we are going to add the absolute value of the coordinates that are different. So first off, I noticed that the y coordinates are the same, -2, -2. They're the ones that don't help us. Okay, so now we add the absolute values of the x coordinates. So the absolute value is 6. The absolute value is 1. 6 plus 1 is 7. So they're going to be 7 units apart. Now, let me just show you. Get my eraser on. Let me show you how it would work if you plotted them. So E is at -6, -2. So E is right there. And F is at 1, -2. So 1 is right here. -2 is right here. So if we were counting that distance, remember each block is worth 2. So kind of have to do this. I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Remember the reason we add them is because this is 6 away from 0. This is 1 away from 0. So we have to add those two distances because they're in different quadrants. All right, so now as you do the next two, here's what I want you to remember. Remember, same quadrant, subtract the absolute values. Different quadrant, add the absolute values. So your job is to try 5 and 6 on your own. Okay, when you're pause the video, try them. When you're done, restart it. If you're absolutely stuck, you can do 5 and 6 with the video. Okay, go. All right, let's see how you did. So, first, in 5, I see positive, negative. They're in the same quadrant, so I'm going to subtract their absolute values. Now, remember, the -4s and the y are the same. So I have to do 4 minus 1 is 3. So they're going to be 3 units apart. Okay, and in 6, let's see if they're in the same or different quadrant. So I see this one is positive, negative. This one's positive, positive. So they're in the different quadrants, which means you're going to add the absolute values. So remember the 3's are the same. So we're going to add the absolute value of those. 4 plus 2 is 6. And that's it. All right. So anyway, hope that helped. If you have any questions, ask. As always, thanks for watching.